Thank you for joining the WWSD podcast. I'm your host, Josh, and we are sponsored by Collectors Maze. If you love comics and anything fandom related, be sure to check them out at collectorsmaze.com for your virtual Comic-Con experience. As always, I'm joined with Seamus and Kyle, and tonight we have a special guest, Paul Farahvar. Paul is a lawyer and comedian from Chicago. He hosts two podcasts, the Make Us Mixtape podcast and the Singles Only podcast. He's a very funny guy. We're excited to have him on tonight. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. So,
I didn't butcher your last name, right?
No, you said it right.
All right.
First
awesome.
time, yeah.
That's great.
Oh.
No, this is exciting. I'm happy to be in Florida. I before we started, I'll let the people behind the scenes. I thought you guys were in Chicago, where I'm from too. So I was kind of be like all excited to do this outside in Florida, but like you guys, like it's like this all the time. So you guys, like,
which it's actually chilly today. It's like it was in the 60s this morning.
Oh my god! You have no idea what you're talking about. Stop it.
I put my son in flannel.
Yeah.
It's been a lot cooler here this year, which is nice. But
oh, really? Okay. Yeah, you don't know what that means.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. No cold vortexes down here.
Yeah.
In Chicago, well, I went back to Chicago for a couple. I was on the road, and then I had to go through Chicago, and it was a snowstorm. We got 12 inches of snow on Monday. I couldn't get out of my garage. And then I was like, I was going to shovel. And I'm like, wait a minute, why would I shovel to just do an errand when I could just wait a day? I'm going to be in Florida and then I'll just do the errand here. Yeah. So, and then when I left, it started snowing again. So yesterday it was raining here and it got to like 66 in Sarasota. So I think you guys will be fine.
Oh yeah.
I'm surprised they have flannel here. I didn't even know you guys had flannel.
My wife's a Floridian. She's lived here her whole life, and she puts a jacket on when it's like 85 degrees. It was like, this is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, that is ridiculous. But you can tell people. I mean, my family's here, and I've been coming here for a while, and it's fun to watch, especially in like a touristy area where like people, when it does get cold in Sarasota and Florida. I know it does get cold here in the winters. But you can tell the people that are from out of town because they refuse. They're like, I brought shorts. I'm going to wear shorts.
Flip-flops and shorts.
Yeah. And you're like, dude, it's raining and it's 50 degrees. Like, it's not going to happen today, buddy. But I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Paul, you're a comedian, and previously you're a lawyer, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So, how did all that start out? Like,
Oh man! So actually, even before I was a lawyer, I was a musician too. So I was in bands.
Oh shit! That's awesome.
I managed bands. I had a music company called Shearer Boy Productions, where it was like a one-stop shop for bands, where we basically could book them, promote them, book shows, and then do entertainment. I was an entertainment lawyer as well, where we would shop the albums and stuff like that, and then I would also produce the stuff. Sometimes even playing with the bands and stuff because I could play a lot of instruments. At the time, I was a part-time lawyer at a firm. And then after I kind of hit a wall with music, things changed in the music industry. Obviously around 2004, 2005, a lot of things changed with the record companies even before that were slowly disappearing and the old school way of music wasn't working. So I was a partner at a law firm 2008, and then by chance I started taking improv classes at Second City with a friend of mine, and that was just to like become a better lawyer or just to have fun, meet people. And then I got really into it, and then my friend was opening for Bob Saget one night at a theater, sold out theater, and then he was so nervous to meet Bob. And because I was managed artists for years, managed musicians and booked them and was always backstage, I'm like, he goes, come with me and act like my manager. And so I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Well, I mean, it wasn't even acting. I was kind of managing his career at that point, which was nothing. And I was like, well, these are comedy and music have similar, it's entertainment. And so I was drunk because I went to the Cubs home opener, and and I went backstage. As I'm walking in, Bob Saget's also walking in, and him and I just walk in together, and like we're just having a friendly conversation because I'm not starstruck. I'm also like still drunk or buzzed, and we became like cordial. And then I was backstage. My friend was like too intimidated to like talk to Bob, and then I was just sitting there shooting the shit with Bob Saget and Mike Toomey, another Chicago legend. And then at one point, Bob said, I told him a story, and God, I wish I remember what the story was. I tell this story a lot, so people who are listening to this who know me know they've heard the story. I don't know what the story was, but eventually Bob just said, "Oh, are you doing that tonight? Is that a bit?" And I was like, "Oh no, I'm not. I don't do stand up. I'm just here with supporting." He's like, "Go up and do a set." And I was like, "I've never done stand up
Holy
in
shit.
my life. I'm not going up to a sold out show for the first time." And they were all kind of like egging me on to do it. And I didn't go up, but then the next day I did an open mic. And then within like a week, I won like a comedy contest and took over hosting like a mic in Chicago after I won this contest. And then, yeah, I just kind of like spiraled from there. Like comedy was never on my radar when I was a younger person. And then, yeah, it just took over my life, and it's all Bob Saget's fault. He told me I was funny.
That's awesome.
I think he thought I was my friend, because if you're racist, we look the same. But no, I'm just kidding. But I think he just thought I was a comedian, because I mean, now as comedians, sometimes we're backstage and people are like looking for stage time. So maybe that's why he said that to me. But
Yeah.
at the time, I took it as, wow, I'm funny. I'm going to give it a shot. And it could be funny. Like, he knows the story. I've told the story a bunch. And it'd be funny if he like was like, "Oh, I was just kidding. You weren't funny at all." And then,
Yeah,
you know what I
I met
mean?
my
And-
buddy. Like, I want to see this guy go on stage and bomb.
Yeah, like, and Mike Toomey, who is now a friend of mine, he's a comedian from Chicago. I told him that story, and he kind of remembers it, and like, but he also doesn't. So like, it's funny how, perception. Three people are in a room. Bob Saget probably doesn't even remember it. Mike doesn't remember it. My friend was kind of in the room. He remembers it a little bit, and I, that changed my life.
Yeah.
So for better or for worse, right? I mean, I could have been like a lawyer driving a Porsche and doing a lot of blow, probably like dead by now, but at least I would have been happy,
Yeah.
But now
Rich.
Wouldn't be in
Rich.
Sarasota right now.
Yeah, would it be
Be
getting
Boca
paid-
Raton right now.
I'd be in Boca Raton, like probably wearing a red hat and being like, maybe I'd be at the Capitol. I don't know what would happen, but
Pinkies up.
yeah, right. And now I'm doing shows at comedy clubs, sometimes getting paid in drink tickets. So
So you're are you still practicing as a lawyer?
no, I'm inactive. I do get cases in, and so what I do is I refer them. I have a referral base where I refer them to friends. So like, I'm still a lot of people's like go-to when they have legal questions, just because I practiced law for so long. So I always want to take care of people, and a lot of comedians and comedy adjacent people, especially during the pandemic. I was trying to help them find the right lawyers.
That's cool.
And
So-
which kind of law you practiced? Said it was litigation for entertainers.
I did entertainment law, but
Okay.
that was a small portion of it. I also did insurance defense. I did plaintiffs' cases, a lot of personal injury adjacent stuff, healthcare law, municipalities laws. I was in court. I was literally in federal and state court trying cases. I tried more cases than most people do in a lifetime. So
Did any of the skills that you learned as a lawyer like lend themselves to comedy?
I mean, obviously public speaking
Yeah.
and listening. I think what it works better the other way, because when I started comedy, I became a better lawyer, because what people don't realize about stand-up comedy is a lot of it is listening and reacting. When you become a better comedian or even a better lawyer, it's more about listening. If you're a good listener, you're going to succeed. And as a lawyer, lawyers tend to just want to ramble on and on. And I was good at watching the judge and just knowing when to shut up. And that's
It's like
the
that
same
comedic
thing.
timing.
Yeah, it's almost like when I became a comedian, I remember a story where I was not prepared. And let's be honest, a lot of times as lawyers, when I was younger, I would like read all the stacks of documents and be ready. And I was so eager to talk and say stuff. And I would do it, even like sometimes where the judge is like, I'm already voting for you. Don't even talk. As you get older and through comedy, I actually learned it's better to just watch the judge and just react. If she's rolling her eyes while the other guy's talking or the other lawyer is talking, just shut the fuck up and don't say anything. Sorry, are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, you
Oh,
can curse.
absolutely, yeah.
And I remember a situation where a lawyer was just talking and I just watched the judge and I was like, I'm not really sure what the case is, what he's talking about. So I didn't read it. And I just looked at the judge and I just went like, I mean, like literally went like this. And she's like, I agree. And I did, and I won the motion. So stuff like that, you don't know when you're younger, an idiot lawyer, or even as a comedian too. Sometimes, I learned that, it's better to just read the room, and that's something you gain as a comedian. And hey, it helps you with everything. Stand-up comedy has changed my life. I joke about it for better or for worse, but like there's a lot of cool things that have happened as a result of it.
So quick question, like when you went to law school, was that like something you wanted to do actively, or was like your parents forcing you, or like
That's a good question.
Did you law school?
When I was younger, I always wanted to be a lawyer. I was going to go into politics when I was a lot younger, and even in college, I thought I was going to be like a U.S. senator and all this stuff. I discovered music in college and became a musician, and I was like, well, I'll get a law degree. And I still love the law. I still practice. I mean, I don't practice. I still like follow the law, and I have a love for fairness and justice, if that makes sense. So it was a little of both. It was a little that I wanted to do it, but I also, in our family, you're either in the Middle East community, you're either a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, and everything else is like whatever, So yeah, I mean, that was kind of like I had one choice, and I hated blood, so I couldn't be a doctor.
Gotcha. That's cool.
Now, were your parents disappointed though? Like when you stopped practicing law and went to comedy? I'm sure they had like, "Are you fucking serious?"
They're in denial. They still think I practice law.
Oh, okay.
So what's with this comedy hobby, right?
I think they think it's like, I think it's kind of hard for them to understand because they're older and they're immigrants, legal, relax, Florida. They're just not. They don't know what entertainment is. There's not a lot of Middle Eastern entertainers, there's Maz Jobrani, who's a Persian comedian, Iranian comedian, and then that's it. And maybe Maximini. There's a couple people, but we don't have a lot of people in the entertainment industry right now, other than playing like, 7-Eleven clerks and terrorist number 3, Yeah.
All right, Kyle, you have some questions. You want to start shooting some out?
Yeah, Paul, we've seen you do a lot of really great highlights. Like, we loved them. But a lot of people, they're afraid to get on stage for fear of failing. Can you tell us about maybe a time that you bombed and how you recovered from that sort of thing?
Oh, man. Let's see. I've bombed. Well, first of all, recovering from, as you get older, or as you do more comedy, you start like embracing the bombs. When you first start, obviously bombs suck, but once you bomb and you're done with it, you're not afraid of it anymore. So like a lot of people who are afraid of doing comedy or doing stand-up, the fear of bombing goes away once you've done it and you've come to the other side. As it pertains to bombing later in life, like how I recover is either try to get up as soon as possible and do another show where I know I could build momentum and confidence, whether it's doing stuff that I know will be funny. Because at this point in my life, I'm pretty sure I am funny. So I know there's certain ways to win over a crowd. Or the other option is to just eat. Like I'll eat a lot of burritos and then I feel better.
That's
We can relate.
yeah, that's my go-to. I like to eat too
Burritos or like
when I'm sad.
donuts. But yeah, I mean, the fear you get over. I think when you start stand up, bombing is part of the learning process, and it is a process. Like there's no shortcuts with stand up. It's kind of like that's kind of going back to you asked me about law and stuff. There's like this unique skill of stand up where you get your results like right away. You know, if you're funny, you get a laugh at the show. You know you're funny. If you, on the flip side, if you bomb, like you aren't funny, or that joke wasn't funny, and there's no like, there's no one can deny that. Like if you've had a great show, like nobody can deny that you just crushed the show because there was immediate laughter. So like it's one of the only careers where it's not there's objective results that show that you succeeded at what you're supposed to do. As a lawyer, you can win cases, you can lose cases. As a doctor, there's still like a science to it. You have to wait for the results to see if the medicine helped or if it was just time. But with comedy, you right away if they're laughing or they're not laughing. You did a good job or you didn't do a good job. So there is that fairness and fundamental like justice. When someone, and it works the other side too, where you see a show where you're like, why is that guy headlining? And then you go to the show and he's murdering the crowd. It's like, well, that's why the club booked him. Or on the flip side where, sometimes you have people that are doing shows before they're ready. And there's that instant karma or instant justice that if you try to skip over steps as a comedian, you're going to bomb. And I'm guilty of that too. I got a lot of opportunities before I was ready. And when you bomb, you have the opportunity to either, go back, do the work and come back and prove yourself, or like quit,
Yeah.
Do you think it would be a good strategy to kind of almost go out to purposely bomb, like the first time out, just get it over with kind of thing?
Well, just getting up is, first of all, the first time you go up, if you're going to an open mic, I assume most of the places are going to they're going to treat you. If you go to a good mic, they're going to treat you well. And you're not going to bomb the first time. You're going to think you crushed. Because you're going to hear a laugh. The first time you hear a laugh from something you say, even if you do 4 minutes and you only get one laugh, you're going to be like, wow, that went well. It's the second time. You don't need to purposely bomb. The second time you go up, you're going to bomb no matter what. It's just the way that it works. No one gives a shit the second time you go up. The first time, they're like, oh, yeah, all right, that was okay. They're nice to you. But the second time,
Is it hard for you to watch other people bomb, or is it something like you kind of smile and like, oh, somebody's getting in it, getting their hands dirty?
If it's a threat, it depends on the situation. If it's somebody you don't know, it's uncomfortable. But when friends are bombing, we love watching our friends bomb. And you can go to a show. It's not because like, it's because it's like hard to explain. Like, I can tell when my friends are watching and they're watching it, if it's a tough room, or because I know my friends are funny. But if they're struggling with a crowd that doesn't get them, or it's not their crowd, it's so fun to watch your friends. And then it becomes fun for them because they're like, okay. And sometimes you let the crowd in. You're like, hey, so you can see Paul's here now because he's seeing that I'm having a bad time and I'm struggling. And comics like to watch. It's just one of those things. But if it's somebody you don't know, and it's like, it's not, no, I hate it. I hate watching it. It's uncomfortable, and you root for them to do well. You obviously want them to come on the other side. But if you don't know someone, or they're bombing because they're not ready, it's uncomfortable, and you're just like, you want to see it end.
So you mentioned you have like a real strong sense of justice. Do you find that like hecklers really piss you off even more than normal comics? Or
The normal comics? What do you mean?
I'm sorry, not normal, like just in like because of your sense of justice, are you like affected more than?
Yeah,
normal?
if somebody's mean to, if there's a heckler that's giving someone a hard time for my opener or something, I will be sure to like
Light them up.
if it's a friend, yeah, I will just be like, I got this. And then that's any comedian will do that. They'll look out for their friends and or just hecklers in general. If they're idiots, they're gonna get it. But yeah, I mean, if a heckler's sometimes I'm never mean to a heckler unless like they deserve, like if someone talks shit or yells, or sometimes people don't know that they're not supposed to.
Okay.
My general rule is if a heckler talks during the show and it doesn't, if sometimes like people are talking, no one else, it doesn't ruin the whole show. Like comedians are sensitive to it because we hear it because they're facing you. So the only time I'll go after them is if I see anyone else from the show looking at that person. Then if you want to go to justice, it's like these people paid for a show to see me or to see the show, and now you're ruining it. And that's when I'll say, hey, I'll give them a pass, but if they keep talking or yelling shit out, then it's over. Then it's free game, and I'll either attack them or make them feel uncomfortable or have them removed.
Why do you think people actually end up heckling? Like, it doesn't make any sense to, like, you know, if I go to like SeaWorld or something like that, and I'm like, hey, look, fucking Shamu over here.
Yeah.
You know? Like, why do they feel the need, or why do you think they feel the need to do something?
It depends on the heckle. So there's different types of heckle. Number one, I always give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes they don't know better. It's their first time at a show, or they just think that they're helping the show. So sometimes they don't know, and you have to explain it to them. Either the club will be like, hey, they'll do their job and they'll tell them to stop talking or whatever. Sometimes they think sometimes there's like a nice heckle. Like I had a show where people are yelling, they're like, that's funny. Like they're yelling it and they don't realize that they're disrupting the show. So like those are the good heckles and they don't mean it. I always give them the benefit of the doubt. It's the idiots that are like continuously like stepping on tags or punchlines and you're like, they don't know better. I think that's the case. There is a small amount of people, however, who think that they're funny. Those are the assholes.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, that's not as common as people think. I think the hecklers, the most common hecklers are the people that don't know better, or drunks, or like, you know, parties, like that's their first comedy show or that's their first thing. They don't go to comedy shows, so they don't know. So I always try to think it's one of those options. I think it's a smaller percentage of people who are like intentionally coming to a show to be a heckler. I think that's a very small number. But I mean, that's just my opinion. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're not supposed to heckle, or they just don't know better.
How's like COVID like affected you with like comedy? I know that has to be affecting you quite a bit.
Definitely affected me significantly. I had different schedule for 2020. I definitely had a lot of opportunities. I was having the best year with opportunities. I had a writing job that was postponed. I had a TV show that was postponed, and my festival, South by Southwest, which was postponed. Shows were canceled, obviously. So yeah, I mean, it definitely affected the schedule. I came to Florida way more often than I anticipated. But now things are opening up. The shows themselves were definitely, you can tell when people have come out for the first time. And that's another, going back to your heckling question, people don't know how to act anymore because some of these people haven't been out in a year. Especially, I was in Las Vegas 2 weeks ago, and people were there. You know, you have socially distanced shows, so the laughs aren't as big. Some places require masks during the show, which you can't even hear the laughs sometimes. And people are wary, you know, they're still uncomfortable. Some people are nervous about getting COVID or the whole situation. So it's harder. Comedy's a lot different in COVID times on so many levels. But the good news is things are opening up again, and we're going to get to some sort of normalcy in the next month in other places. I know in Florida, they're like, what's COVID? But But yeah, it's definitely been a huge impact. Stand-up comedy is probably one of the things most affected by COVID, because it's one of those things, going back to what we talked about earlier, where we need crowds. We need people crammed in small rooms with low ceilings and no air, you know? With music, and I'm a musician too, you could still play music, and you could record it and put it out in the world. But when you record a stand-up set or you do Zoom shows and stuff, it's different because we respond to the laughs. Musicians don't need people laughing, or they don't need to get an applause at the end of their show. They're still performing their art, you know?
Yeah.
So it's one of those unique things where I can't think of another example of industry that, I mean, obviously there's industries that were affected significantly more in terms of revenue and whatever, but it's one of those things where we need crowds. We can't function the same way without a crowd. Everything else you can record and make it good. But with comedy, you do that without an audience. Even when you record a special and there's no audience and there's no one laughing, it's hard. It messes up your timing. And for me, laughs are how I decide what joke to do next. Like, I'm like, okay, if they like that, they might, you know? So it's really hard. It's definitely something that's gonna slow down the process. But once it's over, I think comedy is gonna see the biggest boom it's ever seen too, because people are just gonna be ready to laugh.
Yeah, I bet. So, do you what's your writing process like for writing jokes?
Sorry, I'm getting in the shade now. I don't know. It looked like a
Yeah, we know what that's like. You can see
Yeah.
how red I am. That's
It's like the old Michael Jackson video where the faces change. I'm like trying to find the spot. My writing process is what I do is I put an outline. Before COVID, what I would do was I'd make an outline of like the premise, and then I'd go on stage and work it out, record it, and then come back and actually write it. So I write on stage with some ideas of a premise. During COVID times, it's been a little harder. So I try to write a little more in the actual writing process and then go on stage and do it, and then come back and retweet it or tweak it, not tweet it. And that's kind of how I work. Also during COVID, a lot of things, we've been putting stuff online in terms of like tweets and Facebook to see if a joke has legs. And then if it gets a lot of likes, you use that as a basis to make into a joke. So, but my preferred way is to come up with an idea. And I'm a storyteller too. So like if something happens to me, I write it down. I'm like, okay, this is going to be an idea I think I can write. And then what I would do is go on stage at an open mic or somewhere where I have a large chunk of time where no one knows who I am, preferably, and work it out on stage. Because I think under pressure of trying to get a laugh, you will find the funny.
yeah.
And that's how I am. But that's my process. A lot of people write it all out up front. But recording my sets and listening to them are a big part of my writing.
Cool. So how has becoming a comedian changed the way that you like look at the world, like every day in everyday life?
Well, I definitely am trying to live more in the moment, and more COVID and comedy have both helped me kind of just be like, you know, we're only here for a small period of time, want to have fun. But comedy affected me otherwise. I don't know. I think that's a good question. I think I'm definitely happier most of the time than being a lawyer. I think it's when I first quit law, I was able to write a lot, and my brain was like constantly in motion, writing new bits and just thinking of funny things.
I mean, like as a comedian, though, like do you see certain things like, oh, this would be funny as a joke later? Like, do you like, do that kind of stuff? Yeah,
all the time. There's always a rush to try to make something creative, or even now with COVID, I'm doing a lot more sketches and other projects that I'm doing where I'm like, I just want to put content out there that's creative and funny or interesting. So yeah, like those are the kind of things that it definitely is a priority to me. Whereas before I had different priorities, I think, was trying to get rich and get a Porsche. So.
Do you think it's a little more difficult now? Like, people seem to be a lot more sensitive than they have been in like the recent decade. Do you think it's harder to write jokes now, like so with cancel culture and all that stuff?
You know, I think that's there's definitely something to that, but I also think that you should know your audience. I think definitely there's a lot of there's a lot of sensitivity and stuff, but I think there's some of it's was necessary. Like I remember when I started, there would be jokes that are just like, you know, you're like, that's not funny. And I did a show recently where someone's trying to make a funny transgender joke, which, I mean, if you can come up with something that's a sensitive, I mean, I do stuff that's like edgier now, more now than I did earlier in my career. And of course, some people are going to be offended, but if it's funny, if it got a laugh, I think that you're allowed to do it. I think cancel culture is definitely out there, but it's definitely affected me in terms of some of the stuff that I talk about. But for people to say that it's made comedies like worse because of it, I think that's not fair. It's definitely made comedians have to write more, write better. I think lazy comedy. I mean, I know comics I've done shows with that haven't changed their jokes in 10 years. And it's like, you have to adjust. You can't have a punchline that ends with, you know, the N-word or whatever. Although I do have one like that, but it's because it's a complicated story, but I mean, but it's gotta be, you gotta write a well-written joke. And I know, I mean, I struggle with this back and forth with that, but I've seen comedians get canceled or get blasted for a joke. And then you're like, you have to go back and listen to what they said. And it, you know, there's a lot of, some of my favorite comedians like Jeff Asmus is a Chicago comic, one of my favorite guys. He's very like shocking, but he's such a good writer that people that are offended you're like, listen to what he said. Like, it's funny, and the message isn't like right wing or left wing. It's just finding the funny in what we're all bitching about. But on the other side, like if someone just writes like I said, like I saw a guy do a transgender joke that the punchline was that he liked boobs, so he could never cut off his boobs or something like that. I was like, what's the joke? Like, that's just like, it was like, I was like,
it's not even a woman. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I'm like, it doesn't even make sense. But like, I do like when comics talk about stuff that are like touch, like I'm not a lot. The comics that I like to watch are like nothing like my comedy, right? Because I tell stories. I'm like generally PG-13, although lately I've been a little more edgier than normal. But those guys who do that stuff are, if they're funny and they write well and they're smart, I think that's the funniest stuff, because that's how we evolve as society.
Do you have any like jokes yet, like sideline or stuff that you are doing?
Absolutely.
Just feel like, I can't do this one anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for good, you know, like I had to reevaluate stuff that I wrote that seemed like misogynistic. I definitely have to change a couple things now, but it doesn't mean that because I'm not an idiot, I can change a wording here and too and make it still work. There are certain things like I have a joke that I don't do anymore by choice. I know it's going to get a laugh or it's going to make people uncomfortable, but my mom's name is Negar, Negar. It's a very common Iranian name, and I had a joke about it, and it was a true story about losing my mom in a grocery store when I was a kid and yelling her name. But after all the race stuff that happened this summer, you know, it was definitely a sensitive issue, so I couldn't do that joke anymore. I mean, I guess I could have, but I didn't want to because it wasn't right. It wasn't the right time to do it. On unless I'm doing it in a crowd where it's all black crowd, or mostly black crowd, because they think it's funny and they understand that it's a joke about perception of race.
Mm-hmm.
But in the old days, I would do that joke for like a predominantly white crowd, and they would be cracking up. I'm like, you're laughing for the wrong reason. Like, I don't like it. And so I made the decision not to tell that joke. But, you know, I'll do it every once in a while. Like last night I did part of it, and they got really uncomfortable. And I was like, the only people that were laughing were the African Americans in the room. And then I had to like point it out, but then I was like, you know what, this is stupid. It's not worth it for me. But definitely had to adjust stuff and evolve with the changing times. And I think that's a good thing. I think that, you know, you look back on some of the jokes that in the 80s, and it's like 90% of the shit that Eddie Murphy talked about in Delirious would not work now. Richard Pryor, same thing. Like they would say the F-bomb 80 times. And you're like, you can't do that joke now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like watching Rodney Dangerfield. And I'm like, Jesus, like it's so misogynistic. I'm like, oh my god.
Well,
It's very cringy.
You watch some of those roasts of like Richard Pryor and all that stuff. I mean, every joke is about being gay, and it's like, I mean, it's funny in a sense. As I'm a Gen Xer, so like we would say, gay, like that's gay. We would just say it all the time.
Us too. Yeah.
And I still say that on stage. For one of my jokes, I have a joke where, and you could tell people get uncomfortable when I say that's gay, but if you listen to the joke, it's self-deprecating, and I have, you know, I remember when I first told a joke and people were like, oh, you can't say that. I was like, I talked to all my gay friends. I'm like, is this bad? And they're like, what part? I'm like, I don't know. Someone said that, and sometimes people get sensitive when they just hear the word and they're triggered, and you're like, listen to the fucking joke. Like, I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying that's gay. Not like in the sense from the 80s and 90s, but you know, there are certain things that are gay. It's not like back then where they would say it, they would like make jokes about each of them being gay when, you know, that was something that was looked down upon.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think it's a good thing. I think if I could be gay, I'd be gay in a second. Like
Seamus says we can make that happen if you'd like.
Yeah.
I
wish I could be. I mean, I think it seems like it's better now. I mean, thankfully, it's better now to be gay than it was when I was younger. I mean, shit. Yeah. I think back on some of my friends who were gay and they had it so bad. And we talk about it on my podcast, Singles Only, where I've had people who are gay in their 30s or late 30s, early 40s, and it was a different time. Whereas now, my friends, we had Miss Brown on last week, Mike, and Matt Brown is a comedian who's 26, and he's gay. He's done the podcast twice, and it's like he never experienced the shit that the gay community faced in when they're, you know, in the 80s. Like, he's had a much better, it's been much easier for him than it was for people in my demographic, which is good. It's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cool cast. I listened to that one.
I listened to that one today as well.
Yeah.
He's fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was a lot of fun.
He's one of my great friends, and like it's so funny. I think the first time we had it on, it was funny. And there's another comedian. God, I had COVID, and now my brain is like fried. That's a true side effect of COVID, by the way. There was another comedian who was older, and he talked about being gay, and he goes out with guys who are like in their 20s, and they've never experienced that, you know, that prejudice of what they had to, my generation had to deal with.
Yeah, it was so homophobic when we were growing up.
So bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in my fraternity, I was in a fraternity, and there was like two guys who were closeted gay guys, and like we were so mean to them. I mean, I wasn't personally, but like they never would feel comfortable coming out, and it's like, wow, like that sucked, and that's not fair. So going back to justice, but now it's like I love seeing like guys like Matt Brown who are like I'm like, wow, like you get to live your life. Good for you.
Yeah, that's
cool.
awesome.
Whereas guys like us who are straight and miserable had to turn to drugs to be happy. Yeah.
It's actually me and Seamus go to gay bars and
yeah, just to get some validation.
Oh yeah.
No problems getting drinks. Like, it's amazing. I like hanging out with Seamus because, like, I'm like, look what I got here. Like, everyone thinks I scored the hottest bear in the room.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like I remember when I was younger, if somebody who was gay had hit on me, I'd be upset. But now I'm like,
Nice.
I'm like, oh hey, like I still got it, you know, like, and it's. I mean, it doesn't happen now, but like, because I was like, I think the gay community has gaydar, and they can tell that I'm not. But I wish I was like, oh, I miss it when I like dressed nicer. They thought I was gay, but now they're like, oh, this old man.
You take one look at your shoes and they're like, no.
No, I have good shoes. That's what's not fair. I love my shoes. There's a couple gay regulars at the Laugh Factory, and I always like go to them. I'm like, is this okay what I'm wearing? And they're like, no. The gay community and women know how to dress better than men, typically. Not always. Those are the good times.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your podcast a few times already. Like, what made you want to get into podcasting? Was it due to COVID? Because it looks like your podcast has been out for longer than that.
No, I was against starting a podcast. I started Singles Only as a way to promote my show, Singles Only at the Laugh Factory. It was a weekly show where we would have comedians who were single, and we'd interact with crowds about their dating life. Now it's called Drink Day Laugh. We made it open to everybody. But the reason I started it was Jamie Masada of Laugh Factory, who's my mentor, told me that podcasting was the way to go. And I never listened to a podcast before at the time. It was almost 5 years ago. And I was like, fine, it's a good way to promote. I was on the Laugh Factory channel. People were listening because they needed content back then. If you can believe it, there wasn't that many podcasts back then. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of just the show no longer exists. The Singles Only became Drink Day Laugh. And then people were listening to it. And then I learned that I really love interviewing people. I love talking to people. And then it kind of took off from there. And now we're almost on 250 episodes. It's a weekly up. We interview people who are single. I love it. I love hearing people's journeys about being single. Everyone has a different one, and I love it. And then, and then I have the other one, Make Us a Mixtape too, which that just started as just a fun way for Marty DeRosa and I to talk about music, because we'd always talk about music at shows, and I had a different podcast, music, when I was on WGN radio, and it was kind of like evolved into that. So yeah, podcasting, and now I love podcasts. I used to remember driving. I love driving, and I would listen to music, and I would hate anything else to do. But now, like, I just look forward to, one of the things I missed the most about COVID was road shows where I would listen to all my podcasts. And now, like, I get to drive to shows here in Florida and listen to, like, my favorite podcasts. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Did I answer your question? I don't know if
kind of.
That's how I got into podcasts. Short answer, I was against them. I thought they were stupid. And then now I love them. I'm embracing. I think they're the future. And people say there's too many of them. I say there's not enough.
Yeah, we thought the same thing.
That's right.
Okay. All right, we're getting close to that hour mark, so we'll start wrapping it up a little bit. I don't want to keep you too late. Kyle, Seamus, you guys have any more questions for him?
I think it's good. I appreciate you coming on. It's enjoyed talking to you.
Oh yeah, you guys are awesome. Thanks for having me. I have questions about the Magic the Gathering stuff that you have in the background there, Josh.
I'm actually surprised you know what that is. Are you able to read it, or do you actually know what
I'm able to read it. I have really good eyes, but I know what it is. I mean, I know what it is. I don't know enough about it. I don't want to know about it. I just...
Oh, okay. I mean, you only have like a few minutes. I mean, I can talk your ear off.
I mean, isn't that like the modern Dungeons and Dragons? for kids?
It's a card game. So like Dungeons and Dragons would be like a tabletop RPG, where Magic the Gathering is a competitive card game, usually between two people. So it's like me versus you, or originally it was like pitches like two wizards like battling each other with spells. It's kind of like moved away from that concept, but it's just a competitive card game. Very similar to poker. It uses a lot of the same concept as poker, is like bluffing.
I don't know about
reading
that.
your opponent. Well, it's the not the actual game of poker, but the playing of poker, like how reading your opponent, how to bluff, like how to figure out get in their head, how to figure what they're doing. So when you have like that face-to-face interaction with them.
Why wouldn't you just play poker?
Because we're
no
nerds.
magic spells. There's no.
So a lot of the best Magic players, like the pro players, are usually pro poker players as well. So it's just love the game. Like we just like nerdy shit and casting goblins and stuff like that.
There's a lot more strategy with Magic the Gathering as well. Like the different cards come out every couple of years, and then they get moved to different series. So the whole meta of the game is going to change.
But you guys are in Florida, like you can go outside and do things. Like why would you? Like I think that like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. It's like, okay, I live in Chicago. We can only go outside for 3 months, but like you guys can like go outside and like do fun stuff. Why would you do that?
So I did a lot of traveling with Magic. I traveled like multiple states. I've flown all over the United States playing competitively. It's really the competitive aspect of it. I do like that competition.
I love competition too.
Yeah. So like you get that feel where you get that itch where you want to be better than someone, or you want to like be the best, or you want to win. And so that's what I like about it compared to like other things. Like I have asthma and like I'm not that great at sports. So like obviously I can't really play basketball well as well, like stuff like that. So it's like Magic was my outlet of being able to like compete. I mean, it's so different than video games. Like people like video games now are like kind of replacing sports for a lot of people, like the e-gaming. Yeah. It's just I like physical cards still.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Also, it's got collectible as well. Like you can see I have a bunch of like pops and shit. I'm just a big collectible nerd. So
yeah, I don't do any of that stuff. I played sports. I didn't have asthma, so
yeah, I would definitely not recommend it. If I had a chance to go back, I would definitely not have asthma.
You can't get COVID. That would be bad for you.
Yeah.
I can't breathe anyway, so I probably couldn't get it realistically.
Oh, okay. Just be careful. I had it, and yeah, the only downside is memory loss. I can't remember names.
When did you get it? Like how long ago?
December. I got it here in Florida, of course.
Sorry.
Within 2 days. I had a mild case, and I don't know where I got it. It's a multiple. I didn't get it at a show. I don't think I did because the other comedians didn't have it or didn't get it. But yeah, I got it. It was mild, and I'm fine because, like I said, I don't have asthma. So I have a. Are
you like overly precautious like with shows? And
I
stuff?
I was not anymore. Now I don't give a shit. Now I haven't washed my hands. I don't care.
Yeah, you got a few month buffer like on fuck it.
Yeah, I've got 2 months of like invincibility. Like I beat the deadliest virus in 3 days. So. Yeah, I before I would like wipe shit down. I don't know. Certain comedians who haven't had it yet that I'm friends with, they still have to. Like, I just watch them suffering. I'm like, oh, I remember those days where you had to like wipe everything down, stay outside, and stuff. I did all that stuff before I had it, but now I have it, it's like that I had it. I'm just like, it's just so much freeing. I could take shows. I could fly a lot easier too. So before I was like fearful of flying in like United and American, they fill the middle seats.
Yeah.
Southwest didn't. But then now that I had, like, I'm like, yeah, bring full. They'll like message you like, just so you know, this flight is gonna be full. I'm like, it's not full enough. We need more people. Like I'm like, I don't give a shit. But yeah. But it's definitely a scary thing, and I'm glad I already had it. So.
Is it even like people like interacting with comedians, like talking to you, like and like seeing you after a show and talking to you? So I'm sure with COVID, you're just like, back the fuck away, dude. Like 6 feet.
Right. And I talk about it on stage where when it first was doing tours in like Oklahoma and places like that in the summer, like people would come try to shake your hand, and we're like, we're not allowed to. And then I would make a deal with the other comedians. I'm like, if we all don't do it, then they're not going to get pissed off. They were getting mad that we weren't shaking hands. And you're like, listen, dude, like, we want this comedy thing to keep going. We don't want there to be a breakout, because there was a couple incidents where I think Brandon Schwab and Ryan Kelly got COVID in Texas, and they gave it to a lot of their fans because you see them taking pictures, doing meet and greets, and you're like, like it just gives us all a black eye. So yeah, I was definitely cautious before, and people would get mad, but now it's like, I did a show last night. People are like, do you shake hands? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll give you a hug.
Or you had COVID, whatever.
I'll give you a wet willy. I don't care. And I mean, I talk about it on stage now, so it's fun. But yeah.
Now, from like the show standpoint, you said you come to Florida. Is like Florida one of the most open states?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
People don't give a fuck down here.
Florida and Texas. I mean, the other places too, like Oklahoma, Arkansas. I did all those, but there just weren't as many comedy clubs. And here, you guys have so many amazing clubs. I mean, I've been coming to McCurdy's for years. That's my home club here, but
awesome.
They're shut down. And after I did the New Year's Eve show there, like they decided to shut down, and I was forced to like do these awesome clubs like Off the Hook, and Snappers is a great club. I'm there this weekend, and Laugh-In. All these clubs are so cool, and they're not. It's not like 100% like normal, but it's much better than the COVID friendly shows, which I love too. Like I did Detroit, and they just opened up for the first time, but they have 50 people restrictions and mask requirements, which are good. But it's just not this, you don't get as big a laugh as you used to. But yeah, I'm hoping most of the people here, I asked people at the crowd who's had it already, and I've noticed a lot of, I would say like 30% of the crowd that's coming to shows has already had it or they've been vaccinated. So it's like, it's not so much the COVID deniers so much as like people are like finally out for the first time.
Yeah. It's cool. So you got some shows coming up in Florida, right?
Yep, I'm at Snappers this weekend. Next weekend I'm at Laugh-In, and then the following week I think I'm with Jim Brewer at Off the Hook.
Oh, nice.
And then I go back to Chicago and Arizona, also another great place for comedy where they don't believe in COVID. And then I'm back here for the month of April. I think I'm in Vero Beach, Margaritaville. It's all on my website, paulfcomedy.com. Come and judge me and see how well I dress, guys.
Do you have any other questions for us, Paul?
The Magic the Gathering was my only real question.
Fair enough. We don't get a lot of questions from our guests, so anything was more than what we got.
No, that's it. Yeah, let me know when this comes up. I'll put it up on my site too.
So if you want, you can go ahead and blast all your sites, your Twitter, Instagram, all that.
Oh, it's Paul F Comedy is my website. Paul Farahvar, Farahvar is my Instagram. My YouTube is Paul F Comedy as well. YouTube.com/Paul F Comedy. I've got clips or playlists for Singles Only, Make Us a Mixtape, Sweet Opinions, which is my candy show with Tristan Triptow. We review candy every week. And,
that's awesome.
And my stand-up sets, and Everyone's a Lawyer, which is a game show, another competitive show that I have, which hopefully will be on TV next year. We'll see what happens with the studios in Burbank.
Cool. All right, Paul. Well, we do appreciate you coming on tonight. This is awesome. Actually, not really tonight. It's early for us. We usually record at 9 o'clock, but we do appreciate you coming on this afternoon for us.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. No,
yeah,
thanks
awesome.
a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
really
you,
enjoyed
Paul.
talking.
You're our
Thanks,
first
guys.
comedian. Yeah, you're our first comedian. So
What do you normally
cool.
have? Magic the Gathering?
No. Actually, we really don't talk about magic. We try not to. We do more pop culture. Yeah, we had a pretty big OnlyFans content creator on a few weeks ago.
Oh,
we had
nice.
a director that's done a bunch of stuff. Worked with Spielberg.
Cool.
We just did a animator that's worked on a celebrity deathmatch Robot Chicken. So we do more pop culture related stuff. Yeah. So comedy is obviously pop culture in our hearts, at least.
Yeah, stand-up comedy is the best art form, in my opinion, and I've done all of them.
Yeah, you really have.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, again, we do appreciate you coming on. So
awesome, guys. Thanks for having me, and tell me when it goes up, and I'll
sounds great.
people.